So hip hop is having its first Chiron return, as illustrated by the huge moment that just took place on Juneteenth. I mean, the war that's been going on, which is really not a war. It was just hip hop coming back and telling you what this is all about, what this is, why hip hop was birthed, and Kendrick, the defender of the families, of tradition, of foundations, just did what he was destined to do. I think that Kendrick's spiritual mission is to uphold the standards of hip hop. I spent enough time to research Kendrick. I didn't know that it was going to come in the form of Kendrick. And also, I didn't know that hip hop was experiencing a Chiron return. Because to me, this study started about a year and a half ago, and around April, the eclipse of April, when I first started looking at Drake's chart, and I realized that he was receiving eclipses. His 0.33 degree Scorpio, it was at the end of the Scorpio Taurus nodals. So the nodes were just about to switch signs, going into Aries, Libra. So you know that the nodes, they move backwards. And also Pluto was about to square his natal sun. Pluto is in Aquarius. It was January 21st of this year that Pluto went into Aquarius. It retrograded. It went the first time. It went in the first time. He didn't get as far as that degree. Didn't get as far as 0.33 degree. He retrograded, but it was enough to see what this was all about. And during that time, it was the UMG and AI, because Pluto is in the seventh house of contracts, of one-on-one relationship. Pluto, big corporation. I was not surprised to see UMG standing up for the AI bullshit. But this is how it really started for me. And I knew that it was in eclipse season. He got into a scuffle with Joe Biden towards the end of last year, which were the eclipses again. I thought that was a terrible idea. I mean, you know, I didn't know who his handlers were, and if there was anyone around him that could advise him. Anyways, to me, it just looked terrible because it was an eclipse season. You're gonna get eclipse. This is the south node going over your sun. What I had already established in April of the year before, when you have transit Pluto squaring your natal sun, it's not for the faint of heart. And then you have the staff node going over that. I didn't think that Drake was surviving. My words, when I reread the letter I sent over to his to his people, we Toronto folks, so it's not too far. You no longer serve the collective, especially your son. This is how you come to identify yourself. No longer serve the collective. I mean, I didn't know that it was gonna take about a year, because it really played out in the eclipses of this year, but it was still in the same axis. And of course, you know, when it took that long, it took a year. But really, if you know how eclipses work, even new moons, you know, sometimes it can take 6 months for something. It takes 6 months for something to really show up. You know, it's not just, sometimes it's eclipse and then bam, you know, it's directly. But a lot of time you have to give it a time span. You know, this is a big movement in your life, in the collective, so it took that long. So anyways, this is how it started out for me. I was looking at Drake's chart. I noticed the eclipses. I noticed the south node over his sun, and I noticed Pluto was squaring his sun. Terrible combination. He got into a scuffle towards the end of last year with Joe Biden. I thought it was of poor taste. The letter he wrote Joe Biden, to tell them that because you are not accomplished and you haven't reached this level of fame, I cannot take advice from you. The thing is, no one's gonna reach this level of fame, you know. But that don't make us less intelligent or less aware of what is going on, or being able to give, you know, maybe not as just an opinion, you know. But my opinions, for me, I form my opinions with the charts. The charts are always telling you where we are. We are in the spirit world. Everything is orchestrated per the will of source. this humans is that they're not autonomous being. You know, the ideas, the songs, the moments. If we can't get out of our ego, which tries to comprehend what this world is all about, you know, it's just energies, forming energies that are manifesting. Whether you see war or happiness or whatever, it's just energies taking place. It's not you doing this. It's not me by my sheer will. It's not. You know, things are orchestrated per the universe will. But anyways, so I also knew another thing that I knew was that there was the 1986, 1987. Everyone who has a natal, a north node in Aries, they were gonna be part of that conversation. Who has a north node in Aries? Because they were having a nodal return. Who has a north node in Aries? Drake. Who has a north node in Aries? Kendrick Lamar, right? 1986, 1987. This nodal return had Chiron as a signature. To me, that was very notable because we're talking about a certain wound, right? You're talking about a certain pain. And when you see a nodal return for Kendrick Lamar and his Jupiter is in Aries, conjuncting that north node, tell me he didn't come to save this institution that hip hop is, right? And digging more into the history of Kendrick, if you're a hip hop head, if you're a fan of hip hop, if this has been part of your culture or been in the background of your lives, then you know the history of California, LA, Compton, Watts, and the role it has played in hip hop, NWA, niggas with attitude, right? But after the fight, after the battle, after the crowning moment, because at first I thought it was a Saturn return, because to me it was a Saturn return. That album, the Snoop album, you know, peppered my teenage years. Like, I remember the release of that album. I remember that song. That was, you know, you in junior high. So I was like, is hip hop going through a type of Saturn return? But then I'm like, it would have been its second Saturn return. It would have been at around 54. So when I pulled the ephemeris, I'm gonna put some stuff here. I realized when I went line by line, I'm like, no, it's not a Saturn return, it's a Chiron return. Hip hop in his chart, if hip hop is birth date, the official date is August 11, 1973. Last year he celebrated its 50 years. Hip hop has Chiron in Aries. So it was a Chiron return, right? If you don't know what Chiron is this wound that we all carry natally with us, that we come to heal. Chiron, the cycle of Chiron is very telling. It's extremely, just like everything else in the study of archetypal astrology. One time I had Jupiter going, not too long ago, because my Chiron is in Taurus. Jupiter was just in Taurus. It went over Jupiter went over my Chiron, and I spent so much time, a deep dive of studying, of philosophizing, of understanding, a huge study on what Chiron was and how it was showing up and how it has showed up in my life, and assigning meaning to it, or where I see myself vis-a-vis of someone else, and understanding that I'm either healing a wound, I'm exasperating a wound, or the role that I'm playing in that person's life, you know, because we do come together, you know, the energies are meeting to accomplish something, you know, it's going to birth something else. So I spent a lot of time with Chiron. Chiron is the original wound. There's so many astrologers have talked about Chiron. These talks that I do is for very advanced astrologers, by the way, not just if you know the houses. Like, you really need to push your analysis. So when I realized that it was, oh, this is part of a Chiron return, and then you see the role that Kendrick is playing, and then when you study Kendrick's history, this kid's, not only Kendrick, I don't understand how Drake thought he was gonna take down Kendrick. I just do not comprehend. As big as you are, your elemental signatures are not on the prowess of the level of Kendrick. Kendrick is a genius. He has Uranus all over his chart. You know, he has Uranus. This is the Uranian And that's another thing that's been fascinating to me too now, because now I've been studying the Uranian people, such as Bianca Sensori. You know, she's an original. Kanye is not making her do anything. This is her. This is who she is. She's quirky. She's out the box, and she seeks freedom. I think that she's hot, and I think that she's extremely interesting because, you know, the Uranian nature. But you also have Doja Cat, and then when I started looking at Doja Cat, I'm like, oh, is she copying this other girl? Doja Cat as well. When you go through her Instagram page, you know, the feed and that provocation, the provocateur, you know, that's Uranian for you. I'm seeking freedom. I want to be myself. I want to be out the box. I want to be original. That's, you know, so yeah, seeing that play out, and also how Uranus plays, you know, how free you can be around someone else. Within 2 seconds of knowing them, you can show them all your quirks. And you know, when Uranus come in a relationship, you know, how you can let all your freak flags freely show up. But anyways, besides the point, studying Kendrick, I think that Kendrick's spiritual mission is to save hip-hop. His to bring it back to what it was originally intended. This is a kid that had been crowned in 2010, 2011 at the onset. Of course, we know his notable songs. We're gonna be alright. You know, what a chant. But you also have to understand who Kendrick is. Sun in Gemini, the lyricist, you know. And the fact that Kendrick and Tupac, a couple days apart. At first, I thought that Kendrick was Tupac's reincarnation. But Kendrick is born in 87. And Tupac got gunned down in what, in 96? 96, yeah. So no. But then when you hear the story of how Kendrick's dad that were in Chicago, they moved her to bring the family up in Compton. You know, he was birthed to be a king. He was birthed to be the next in line, right? And then the deep dive on his mental, some of the decisions that he's made, like to pimp a butterfly. How do you pimp this butterfly? Good kid Mad City, but how to pimp a butterfly? You know, to me that was so telling. Like, I have this entity of hip hop. How do I still make a living out of it without selling it to corporations? And still being true to my people, and still being a voice for my people. I thought that was extremely insightful. The stories. Another thing that I thought that was extremely insightful was there's a video, Homegrown Radio, Kendrick talking about 14 years ago, talking about Tupac coming to him in a dream, you know, but not the flesh, but his aura. Don't let my music die. Don't let my message die. You know, and a few days before, Kendrick says that he had just found out through his mom that he was only days apart from Tupac, you know. Anyways, anytime you're going to encounter Gemini energy, you know that the person has a gift for gab, okay? Those Gemini. But a battle rapper, Eminem, Jay-Z, DMX, I don't know about Nas. I haven't looked at Nas, but there is always some sort of Mars, Mercury, aggressive words. Mercury the mind, Mars the battle. You know, it's always some type of relation. Whether it's in a squid, Drake also has it. His Mars is at 8° Aquarius, and his Mercury is at 18. His Mercury is at 24. It is not a degree, but it is house. Scorpio Aquarius, that's a square, so there is a form of battle over there. Anyways, I don't want to go back to Drake, because this is not about Drake. This is about hip-hop and the hip-hop legacy and the hip-hop Chiron return that it's experiencing. So when I started following the cycles of hip-hop, birthday in 1973, the first opening square is in 1990. And what happens in 1990? So what happens at the first opening square in 1990, more precisely July 25th, 1990, You have all these hip hop labels that are starting to birth, and we go from Death Row to Death Row Record, Suge Knight, Tupac, blah blah blah, and then you have a Bad Boy in New York, which is gonna start getting established in 1991, right? And then you have the opposition. When Chiron goes in Libra in 1996, you have the gun down of two prominent figures of hip hop. You know, in 96 you have Tupac, then in 97 you have Biggie. That's when Chiron does an opposition. And then the closing square in 2003, what happens is you have 50 Cent and Kanye West who are emerging. They are coming out, you know. And who inspired Drake? Drake is part of the closing square. You have 50 Cent and Kanye West were coming, and this is like the new school of rap. And if you see, you know, we kind of go from that rough rapper to now more like of a commercialization. He's more trendy, he's more metrosexual, which is, you know, the flavor that Kanye brought. He's working more with designers, and I'm not saying that Jay didn't work with designers. I'm just saying that you're seeing a different trend in hip-hop. And, you know, from those movements, then you have the onset. Drake is being birthed out of 2007, 2008. But then, I just don't understand how obtuse. But I guess when you are in your power and, you know, you're thinking that this is you doing all these things, how Drake miscalculated who the fuck Kendrick is in this game. Kendrick is the chosen one. He is the legacy, he is the baton, he is the, you know. And I wonder how Dr. Dre feels about the bets they put on Kendrick, how validated and vindicated they feel. Like, you know, I tell you what, when I studying Kendrick Lamar story, it was spiritual to me. I just felt like it was a spiritual experience. This is a spiritual where we are. If you know my beliefs, you know, in the universe, and so there's nothing other than downloads. They give us the idea. There's no autonomy. Human has zero autonomy. Everything that you do, you are supposed to do. Everything that you think is the idea that you are supposed to have at that moment. Get out the ego. You are not that mind. You are not that ego. You're not even the name they give you, okay? But that's from the principles of non-duality. I am. How do you miss King Kendrick? Unless you are too high off your own fucking Kool-Aid. So anyways, hip-hop is this is nothing other than a Chiron return, right? We have healed the wound. And also Kendrick, it's not a time birth for you, but I think that he's a third or fourth house son. You know, a third house son makes him so community leader. You know, the neighborhood, the cousin, when you hear him talk about his other cousins, this is his life. The community, what he will do for the youth, and how much he's needed, and how he can use his voice, how to pimp a butterfly. But that Mars, Mercury, and Cancer, the defender of the family, Cancer, his mom, his sister, his heritage, his foundation, Cancer, ruler of the fourth house, the natural ruler of the fourth house. This is heritage. This is his heritage. Drake. What the fuck were you thinking? This is his backyard. This is his foundation. This is his forefathers. And he was handpicked. Drake came from Lil Wayne in Louisiana, gave him, and he was fitting himself for the past 15 years, selling hip-hop to all the corporations. These are not the forefathers. The Waynes are not the forefathers of hip-hop. Okay? They're not. Dr. Dre, NWA is. Okay? And this is who they have co-signed. This is their kid. This is their people. You know who really bang a set? Not Drake. Not Drake. That delusion, that iteration of hip hop that he gave us over the past. I fucks with Drake, Money in the Grave, Mob Tie, and all those reference tracks that. Because even if Drake comes out with a song, it's like, who the fuck wrote this? There is no name next to Kendrick. Kendrick gave us so many stories. That level of genius can. I don't understand where you thought that you could go toe to toe with this one. Yeah. Anyways, I let this one go. But anyways, that's my take. That's my take. I think that I don't think this is nothing other than a Chiron return for hip hop. It's gonna be interesting where hip hop goes after this, and who is let back into the game, or who is allowed to be a voice for hip hop, because Kendrick is still alive. He's very young. And it will be very interesting what happens to Drake next. I think that Drake, not to say that you need to atone for your sins, but I'm just saying, I think that you just humanitarianism. I don't think that anything other than huge spiritual principles can heal you at this point. You're not going back on top. We don't want that. As I told you a year ago, how you identify yourself no longer serves the collective. This is not what we want. You are not upholding our values. You are not upholding anything that what hip hop stood for to begin with. That's just my 2 cents.